And we are live. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I am one of your co-hosts, Blake Ruffino. Alongside me is my other co-host, the other co-host of this show, Joe DeLeone. Good evening, good sir. How are you?
Are you cheating on me? Is there something that I don't know about?
You pick LSU this week, and I damn sure will cheat on your ass. Yes.
Oh, you didn't look at the picks graphic before we went live.
God.
I may or may not have.
We're losing. All right. The Brian Kelly 10-year LSU's over.
No. It's the other way around. I may or may not have done something out of appeasement to make you feel, and you and the LSU fans feel a little bit better, because again, every single time I pick you guys, you end up losing, and I don't want everyone to be mad at me again. So if I could not give a pick, I definitely would have done that.
Well, next week would be the one that I really don't want you to give the pick for, and that being LSU and Texas A&M. But nevertheless, obviously, we're going to do game picks. It is Wednesday. We'll go through the big games of the week. Joe and I will give you our picks here. The toughest games in college football against the spread, and Joe and I might need to change it up a little bit next year, but hey, it's been fun trying to pick those spreads. We'll do power rankings, week 8 power rankings. I'm sure there will be no debates whatsoever in our power rankings here. I'm sure Joe's going to agree with everything I say, and I'm going to agree with everything he says. And Joe, the Holy War is this weekend, BYU versus Utah, and I think we need to call it by its real name, it being the Holy War.
Yeah, we're going to definitely call it the Holy War. This game is really intriguing, and I don't care if I'm being critical here. I think that BYU has been this weird team that's been easily rankable by the media over the last 2 years, and I haven't really thought that they were actually as good as everyone has perceived. They have benefited from easy scheduling. They've relatively beaten up on bad teams, and last week against Arizona, Blake, I wasn't exactly impressed with them going to overtime with Arizona. I was impressed with Utah and the way that they have shown that they can dominate on either side of the ball. I think that the Texas Tech game is not a true indication of what this Utah team is. I think that they got caught off guard and they got smoked.
Or they just got massively beat by a better team than them.
That is definitely true. That Texas Tech is just in its own separate category, and that's why it's been really kind of complicated to figure out how to talk about the Big 12, is because this has never happened before. This has not happened in a while, except for maybe the last year of Texas being in the Big 12, that there was a team that was far and away the best team in the conference.
Yeah, obviously when Texas and Ohio and Oklahoma were in there, I mean, they ran the show. I mean, there were some years like Kansas State clipped some teams, and then you had some situations where, remember the TCU year in 2022, where they didn't win the conference championship game, but they won the regular season championship, went to the national title. But, I mean, outside of those teams, we haven't seen a team like this dominate to this extent, at least not in the new era. And it's going to be very interesting to see how this game plays out, and we'll talk about it. A couple of super chats in here before we get rolling. Buck says that BYU is not a Christian university. Trust. Who said that they were a Christian university?
Well, they're Mormon. I don't know.
I don't know enough about the faith that, other than like John Smith, I don't really know. I know Artesian and Steve Young played there. That's what I know.
Yeah, they've had Jim Plunkett also has played there. They've got a lot of good quarterbacks. That's important.
I mean, listen, they call it the Holy War for a reason. I think we can all understand where that name came from.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Rick with a $10 super chat says Aggies beat the hell out of Arkansas. Gig 'em. You know, Joe, what's interesting about Texas A&M, and I'm sure we can even go into this in the power rankings.
Jim Plunkett was Stanford. Damn it. I just realized I made a mistake. I'm thinking of someone else. Wait, there's another damn
Zach Wilson.
No, it's not. I didn't mix up Jim Plunkett with Zach Wilson. Those are two completely different. This is going to bother me.
See, every time we try to talk about Texas A&M, you know, Texas A&M's undefeated, and we don't really talk about them enough.
Well, we're going to talk about them a little bit today. I mean, they're going to get brought up in our rankings. I was kind of debating if we should talk about this game this week. There just were a couple matchups that were a little bit more important than the Arkansas game, but Dude, the Texas Tech team, man, they're on a path where they're just dominating every single team that they're playing. I'm excited for the LSU game next week, but that might not even really be a true challenging matchup. Who knows when that next real tough game is going to be for Texas A&M based on how some of their opponents have looked.
I'm just going to say it. I'm sorry. A&M coming into LSU, it's always going to be tough. At night, I'm sorry. That's going to be a tough game for them. Even if they win it, then they win it. I don't think the outcome of Vanderbilt LSU makes it any less or more important. Maybe for LSU it makes it more important, but for A&M I don't know. But they've been a really good team, but I think that they will roll this weekend versus Arkansas. That defense is putrid. They're so bad on defense. But Arkansas, here's the thing though, Joe. I told you this going into, off camera, going into the show. I don't think anybody wants to admit this. This Arkansas offense will light you up. I mean, my brothers and sisters in Christ. I mean, I know we say a lot of things about Bobby Petrino, but when we're talking on the field, they will light you up, son. And you better be ready. Joe, they went offset eye. They went I formation. They did spider 2, Y banana. I thought John Gruden was going to have a heart attack. I literally thought John Gruden was going to have a heart attack going up against Tennessee. I mean, they're really good offensively. They might be one of the worst Power 4 defenses I've seen all year. I mean, shit, you saw them up close and personal.
Yeah. Notre Dame took their soul when they played them because they literally
don't go full Mortal Kombat. Get over here.
I'm serious. Well, that was literally how the game played out. Was what you just talked about, where Arkansas's offense was having some success, and then they started stacking. They just started stacking drives, and then Arkansas gave up. That was what inevitably got Pittman fired. But
yeah,
they had no juice.
They had a lame duck head coach. They quit on the whole situation. I mean, we'll talk about Notre Dame today a little bit. Notre Dame has not been in a game where they've given up against a P4 opponent where they've given up less than 24 plus points. Is that going to happen again this week versus USC? So we'll see. Elks repping the Big Ten, saying light you up, but scored less than Purdue. I mean, their coach got fired and was going to get fired, and everyone knew he was getting fired the week of.
Yeah, I think that this team's we all know this in the sport. Whenever a head coach gets fired that the team doesn't really rally around, there can be different energy once somebody takes over. Tim Skipper is a really good example. I don't know if, by the way, did you listen to, I was going to send this to you and I forgot to. Tim Skipper did an interview with Ari and Andy of On 3.
I listened to it.
It was a great interview. That they need to promote him. He gets it. Deshaun Foster didn't get it. Tim Skipper gets it. That dude should be their next head coach.
I agree. I like Tim Skipper. I also liked what I heard from Alex Golish when he was asked about the Penn State job. I actually believe him. Now, it doesn't mean, and he said this, it doesn't mean that I'm not leaving. It just means I swear to God, I have to put in my calendar to text my wife at 9:30 at night. I'm still here. I fully believe that. So we'll see. Rick says, I have my tickets. Love my Cajun family. Go LSU. They play my Aggies. Yeah, it's going to be a pretty big showdown next week in Baton Rouge.
Rick might be
if LSU wins.
Rick might be one of the nicer Texas A&M fans that we've had comment on our videos. Marshall's also been quite nice in the Discord. But thank you so much, Rick, for
I know. I didn't know that Marshall, that's always in here, is an Aggie fan. I got to be honest with you. It makes me look at him differently. I thought I had a friend, and then he told me he was an Aggie fan, and it just completely blew that friendship away. Just throwing that out there. All right, let's get rolling here. Everyone, do us a favor: hit the like and share. Share to all of those groups if you're on Facebook and to all those social media pages. You're watching us, listening to us on YouTube. Like, subscribe, notification bell. Wherever you listen to podcasts, rate, review, and subscribe. Every Ruffino and Joe show is brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. If you have the discretionary income, go over to FanDuel, download the FD Sportsbook app. Do what Joe and I do every Saturday. Go place those bets over at FanDuel Sportsbook today. If you don't know what you're doing, you can ask Joe or I, or just go over to FanDuel.com/RG for more details. But Joe and I are greatly appreciative to be partnered with FanDuel this college football season. Again, go over to FanDuel.com for more details, and just download that FD Sportsbook app for more. All right, Joe, let's get moving here. It is week 8 in college football, and it's Wednesday. So, Joe, you know what that means. We're doing our power rankings. Your 1 through 12 and your power rankings this week consists of what?
At number 1, Miami. Number 2, Ohio State. 3, Indiana. 4, Alabama. 5, Texas Tech. I'm standing by it. 6, Texas A&M. 7, Georgia. 8, Ole Miss. 9, USC. 10, Notre Dame. 11, Tennessee. Yeah, wait. I thought I wrote Tennessee twice. And 12, Georgia Tech.
Let me move on to mine here really quickly before we get into this debate. Number 1, Ohio State. Number 2, Miami. Number 3, Indiana. Number 4, Alabama. Number 5, Georgia. Number 6, Texas A&M. Number 7, Oregon. Number 8, Ole Miss. Number 9, Texas Tech. Number 10, Notre Dame. Number 11, LSU. And number 12, I wrap it up with Missouri. My good friend, I let you kick it off every single week. Where do you want to take this one first?
Oh, man. Do we want to have the quick Ohio State Miami discussion?
Let's do it. You have Miami. You have Miami at number 1. I have Ohio State. I have Miami at 2, and I'm wearing my Miami green again this week, so they don't have to yell at me. We're fighting over semantics here, so everybody in the chat from Miami that completely hates me, I've not taken you out of my top 3, but let's go ahead and get into it.
Nothing has changed, obviously, for Miami because they didn't play last week.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a game last week.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Louisville game is going to be a nice little reminder for everybody of how dominant that they can be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still standing by this. And I know this is kind of this isn't going to be a very long argument to be had because there's no new information that's been presented to us. I think that Ohio State is starting to show that they're establishing a run game, which was my only just small general, not concern, but one thing that I thought that Miami did a lot stronger. I'm not really kind of coming at you as angrily as I have in the past, but I'm sticking with Miami. And if you want to have Ohio State at 1, that's completely fine.
What has Ohio State done since losing to Michigan that we could sit here and say that they don't deserve it?
I think that if we're being very specific and separating what makes teams great, as we've talked about a couple times so far this year, Miami has the better offensive line and they've got the better defensive line than Ohio State. I think that everything else, Ohio State is equal or better than Miami's. But I think that, and I value a lot, a team that is stout on both sides of the ball in the trenches. That means a lot to me.
We say that about the offensive line until the first time they went on the road and couldn't run the football in Florida State.
They still ran over 100 yards. I wouldn't classify that as that they couldn't run the ball. I mean, the same thing applies for Ohio State, that they couldn't run the ball against Texas. They've had games where they've struggled to generate a good yards per carry clip. So that's where the separation is.
Joe, do they have anybody that can guard Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and those guys, Max Clare, and the guys? I mean, have we seen them be tested? Like, really? I'm really asking. Has Miami truly been tested? When you now look at it, with Florida State now not having a conference win, with Florida about to fire their head coach, I get you could say G5 in South Florida, but I'm really asking. Because that narrative gets painted on Ohio State, but it's not being painted on Miami because of what they went through at the time that they went through it. So I asked the question, like, not saying that they haven't dominated and haven't been dominating, but at the same time, I know Miami fans don't like saying this, but this is just an actual fact. The actual fact was it was a 7-point game against Florida with 5 minutes left to go in the game. I really don't think outside the Texas thing that there were real chances of Texas really getting into that one until the end, and then they just wee down their leg.
Wait, what do you mean about that with Texas?
They dominated Texas. I mean, Texas couldn't move the ball.
But Texas was still in that game the whole game. If we're going to act like Florida was in the game with Miami, we have to acknowledge that Texas was. But this is why I don't like sitting here and going back and just talking about specific games and the outcomes of those games. Like, we're sitting here trying to determine who the best teams are.
The only reason you put power ratings is because of the outcomes.
But we're not, okay, talking about how teams have performed. We're not going to put a 2-win team on here. We're not going to do some dumb shit like that. I'm just trying to say that we're not doing resume-based ranking. That's not what the point of the power ranking is. We're trying to project here if we think that if these teams played one another, who would win?
Okay.
And I think that to the point that you asked, going up against DJ Lagway, who hasn't played well this year, is still a very gifted quarterback, was under 100 passing yards. Obviously, no team, the only teams that have gone up against a receiver room as good as Ohio State's are the teams that have played Ohio State, because there's no one that has a receiver room that is anywhere near as good. USC's is close. USC's isn't far off, but it's not as good as Ohio State's. So with that in mind, I have context of a secondary and a defensive coordinator that I would trust to at least slow them down enough for the game to be close.
Enough for the game to be close.
In order for them to win it.
So you would take Ohio State over Miami today?
No. I would take Miami to win.
I would take Ohio State until they prove me wrong. Basic. Do I worry about Ohio State's offensive line and Julian saying not being really having situations where he's been under a lot of pressure? Yes. Has Ohio State, for me, resumes do matter. It doesn't matter if we disagree or agree on that. Just my stance on it. I think not leaving the state of Florida is a thing. Like, I want to see you go on the road. Like, at the end of the year, you got to go to some northern, colder situations if you're Miami, and we're going to see how you deal with it. And I think they're going to deal with it fine. And I think that they win those games. At the same time, your schedule's kind of catered to you a little bit, and I do weigh that in there. I'm going to weigh that in there. And I just, again, I won't want to see – I don't know if there's a team that's truly had the ability and athletes to test them the way that they need to be tested.
But this is where you and I keep getting butting heads on this. If we spend too much time talking about and projecting that we have to see teams tested, it's week 8. We've seen some teams be tested a lot more than others.
But I also have Ohio State that's in a conference that teams that are better, that have the athletes that are better, that can put pressure on them.
Miami's played a tougher schedule than Ohio State.
No, they haven't.
Yes, they absolutely have. Absolutely, they have.
Joe, Miami has played how many ranked opponents versus Ohio State that's played 2? Washington is a better team, with all due respect, than what Florida is.
Florida is better. Florida has better athletes and a better roster.
Yeah, but they're not a better team. I say that all the time about them having dudes, and you're saying, well, the team's not better. They went into Washington. Washington should be ranked. Sorry,
but they're not ranked. So who's the other ranked team that Ohio State is beating?
Are dumb. Let's just be honest.
An overrated Illinois team to me is not an impressive win. I thought that they kicked. I thought that they kicked the shit out of them, and Indiana beat them by 53 points. There's a little bit of a difference when we're talking about that. Let me reframe before Ohio State fans get pissed off at me.
Please get pissed off.
I think that beating Illinois is a good win. I more so am implying that I did not think that Illinois was good enough to be ranked.
I feel like every time
bad offensive line. No,
I feel like every time me and you do power rankings, I'm prepping for like law school. Feel like me and you could go to Harvard now.
Well,
I'm Harvey Specter.
That's not true. That's absolutely not true.
I'm Harvey Specter, and you're Mike Ross.
Yeah, I don't think we're smart enough for that. There's a reason why we're sitting here doing.
No, we're not. All right, let's go to some other ones here.
Let's talk about Indiana. We both have Indiana at number 3.
Indiana at number 3. Look, I got to eat my words here. I did not think that they were going to go into Eugene and win, and Kurt Cignetti and this team keeps winning, and they're a top team in the country.
The only thing that I legitimately was debating was putting Alabama ahead of them. And what made it close was the momentum that Alabama has at the current moment in the way that their defense has improved. But the reality is we have to acknowledge and we have to appreciate Indiana has been one of the more balanced teams in college football. As we've had these debates and these discussion on who's the most balanced, Indiana's run defense, their pass defense, they've got all conference caliber players at every single position group, and then they run the ball really well. And Fernando Mendoza has the passing prowess to air out any secondary. He made a lot of great plays against a really good Oregon defense. That to me is what's
Mhm.
impressive about Indiana and why they're warranted being at number 3. Let me say this, though, before you jump in here. I don't think, because you love to talk about past games and whatnot and resumes, and I don't like to do it as much, so I think that this is more in line with your thinking. Out of any team in our top 12s, I think Indiana has the most impressive wins. So they beat Oregon on the road, and they have a 53-point win against Illinois. I know that's
I would
like
still go I'd still go Bama. Because Bama beat a ranked Vandy, they beat a ranked Tennessee, they beat a ranked Missouri. So I'm not going to agree with you there. I do think that they have the best win if you're going to compare them to Bama going into Eugene and getting that win. If you're talking about best wins, plural, I can't do that because two of those games, well, one of those games is going to be at or Alabama. They have Tennessee this week, but look, the Florida State game is what it is, and it's going to haunt them in reference to these power ranking type of conversations and things. But when you beat Vanderbilt, you go into a situation where you beat Mizzou, and you come into a situation where Alabama, and by the way, I said Tennessee, you beat Georgia. By the way, two of those games are on the road.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it, now that you're saying this, I retract my statement that I just said. I think that Alabama has the most impressive wins.
Plural,
the
right.
Loss against Florida State is the only thing that kind of holds me back.
Hold on.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you this, and I'm not trying to pin Alabama and Indiana here. If Alabama goes a month straight beating ranked opponents, I'm going to be real with you. I'm putting them above Indiana, and they're going to sit there at 2.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagrry.
Because that's a month. And by the way, newsflash, it doesn't end for them. These ranked games for Alabama doesn't end. So until they get to Auburn, ironically, it's not going to end for them unless Oklahoma just continues to wee down their legs too.
Here's the one thing I will say with Alabama that would really justify. Now that I'm actually thinking about it, I really do wish I put Alabama at 3. I hate when I do this to myself and after the fact, I realized that there was someone else I would have rather had higher. I think if they can continue their recent string of success at stopping opposing teams' rushing attacks when those teams running the football, it was their strengths, then I'll be willing to be very bought into what Alabama is going to do at the end of the year, because that ultimately was something that killed them against Florida State, and it almost hurt them against Georgia. But then they bounced back and they rapidly improved against Vanderbilt, and they did a really good job against Missouri bottling up Ahmad Hardy. So if they do that again this week against a Tennessee team that runs the ball pretty well and they bottle up Bishop, then I might actually just move them up next week to number 3.
I do wonder about Alabama. Here's why I put Indiana ahead of them. The run game and the injuries there worry me for Bama. I don't think that they're catching up to them right now, but I think eventually it will catch up to them. It might not catch up to him this week. But what is the status of Jam Miller? He's going to be questionable going into the game on Saturday per Pete Nakos of On 3. What is that situation? By the way, what's the health status of Ryan Williams? If you don't have, if he doesn't have his premier weapon, then what's going to happen there? So I understand your thought process of putting them there, but if you're asking me, it is kind of starts becoming health status at this point. Hey, if you're on a neutral field tomorrow, I don't know if I don't lean a little bit more Indiana, because I worry. I trust Ty Simpson. I trust Ryan. I trust Grubb. I trust DeBoer in reference to what they've been doing. They've been able to beat all these ranked opponents in a month. They haven't really had. They haven't had a break where they're just playing. They're playing teams that are actually in the top 25. I get all of that. It also comes to bear hey man, a center and a left tackle had a catch and a carry more than Ryan Williams did last week because of health. I don't know the health status. I don't know what's going on there. I'm not even going to act like I know, because I don't. But it is something. And if Jam Miller's not there and he's not a part of their run game, Joe, I desperately worry about Alabama, because I think there's going to be a time where teams are just going to say, well, then run it on us. Then run it.
Yeah, they got to get healthy. And it is something to monitor, because Jam Miller, as we talked about, was the catalyst for their run game starting to come back. But now He's banged up again. He's got a concussion, I believe, was what the issue was.
Yeah,
from the past
concussion
game
from last week. Yep.
So he keeps getting hurt and he keeps having these issues. If that is going to be the trend this season, then it makes it really hard to justify Alabama being their true selves, being their highest potential version of themselves. It wouldn't shock me if they were this banged up still later on in the season and they don't drop a game that they're not supposed to. But I'm in on Bama. I really think Bama's going to be fine. And again, I'm sitting here thinking about how maybe I should move them at 3. I have one team that I have a serious issue.
Let me ask you this: do you agree with Viv that the SEC is overrated?
Wait, why are you getting baited by that?
Well, I think it's an interesting conversation.
I don't think that the SEC is overrated. I do not think that they carry the same weight as they have in the past, though, and I think that that's very true.
It definitely looks that way right now. It looks like that they don't have an elite team. But at the same time, to your logic, 7-point win versus Texas. Oh, well, we didn't open the offense up. Well, it's still only a 7-point win versus Texas if you're Ohio State.
Wait,
Indiana. I mean, I gotta ask a question. I stuck up for Oregon. You got beat by Indiana at home, and then you go into double overtime to a 3-loss Penn State team. What are you? I think there's questions around some of the top teams in the Big Ten too, just not as much as around the SEC. Meaning the SEC top teams have losses. Besides, and people don't trust Ole Miss, people don't trust A&M because they've never done it. But the teams like Ohio State and now Indiana don't have losses, so you don't look at their resumes, or you look at their resumes differently versus a Georgia and a Bama that does have a loss. Does that make sense?
Not really. Here's my.
Well, let me
just
ask you,
wait.
What's the difference between Oregon's loss and what Georgia went through, or what some of these?
I have them ranked very similarly. I think that the problem is in the difference between the Big Ten and the SEC currently this year, and why the SEC is quote down. A lot of the teams that are near the top of the conference that are ranked at the current moment have significant flaws, have like serious flaws. I don't think that Oregon's has any like legitimate flaws that are serious. They have weaknesses, but they got beaten in a tough game against a good team.
Yeah, running the
ball. Can you let me finish what I was trying to say here? That you have Georgia, who has no pass rush. You have Alabama, who has an incredibly inconsistent run defense. You have LSU, who can't throw the ball because of Garrett Nussmeier. Vanderbilt is one of the most overinflated teams for whatever reason. They're the one team that's definitely benefiting from the SEC logo being on their chest. Missouri showed plenty of issues on defense in their secondary. South Carolina was supposed to be a good team this year, and they
still haven't. You're going through 7 teams, and you hadn't talked about the 2 undefeated ones.
Well, at the same time, Ole Miss, I don't think has been a truly dominant team. Look at the defensive issues that they've had. Same thing with Tennessee. They all have defensive issues.
Something about A&M. So I do. I
A&M's the only one I don't think I can talk about. Admittedly, I think A&M's one of the most balanced teams in college football.
So again, what's the difference? What I said doesn't change the logic. I do think the Big Ten right now has 2 teams that sit above because they don't have that loss on the end of their resume.
But forget about the resume for 2 seconds here. We're talking about how the conferences are perceived. Like, very simple question. Wait.
Overall, then you got to admit the back end of the Big Ten is trash.
That's fine. That's fine. And I would actually argue, though, now the back end of the Big Ten is proving that it's improving because Northwestern and UCLA are a lot more competitive than they've been in the past. But and Purdue is also a lot more competitive than they've been in the past. But let me ask you this, and I think that this is a very fair point.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any SEC team that is legitimately in the conversation for the top 2 teams?
No. I mean, if Bama beats Tennessee this week, then excuse my language.
I don't think that
yeah.
justify. But they lost to Florida State.
And they beat 4 straight ranked opponents. By the way, just a news flash, Alabama would have played and beaten more ranked opponents than your 2 top teams combined.
Forget the resume okay, but this is all funneling back into the same conversation that we're sitting here and having. They're beating ranked teams because they're playing teams that have inflated rankings. That's the whole point.
You legitimately called Illinois overrated.
That's not, but that has nothing to do with what I've brought up to you.
Yes, it does.
Illinois was overrated.
Not every team that you play can't be trash, especially when you have them in your top teams.
Illinois was overrated, but you know who's underrated right now? I do think that Washington's underrated. I do think that USC is incredibly underrated. I think that Nebraska is underrated as well.
I'm out on Nebraska. I'm completely out on Nebraska. Don't hit me with that.
The problem with using the argument of just saying that said team has more ranked wins than other teams in other conferences is the inherent bias of those that are ranking are going to keep ranking SEC teams with good records.
You literally just said, less than 10 minutes ago, that if Alabama does that you would put them at 2, and now you're re-going back.
No. I said 3. I said 3 over Indiana. I said I would move them to 3 over Indiana. I wouldn't move them up any higher.
Regardless of the number, then you're agreeing with the resume you're just said 10 minutes ago that if
you're missing a part of what I said. You're missing a key part about what I just said.
I'll let you finish. If you beat another ranked opponent, you would put them above Indiana. Why?
The key thing that I brought up that's not even what I said. What I said during that take was that if their run defense continues to have more good performances like they had against Vanderbilt and Missouri, then I will feel justified in moving them up to number 3 over Indiana.
So next week, if they win this week and you move them to 3, if you move, but
they're still not a top 2 team. I think that there's a line of separation between Ohio State, Miami, and Alabama and Indiana.
I think there's a separation between Ohio State, Miami, and then everybody else.
Yes, that's what I just said.
Right. So then you're basically saying the Big Ten and the ACC have the 2 top teams.
That's correct, but we're not going to sit here and argue for the ACC having competitive teams because they legitimately got.
So then when I say Miami's not playing anybody, you can't get mad at that.
But just because they're not playing anybody does not mean actually, and that's still BS. Because they beat Notre Dame the way that they did in the beginning of the season. That is still, if we're talking resume, it's still impressive.
And that one was on the road. And you're not giving A&M. And this is another thing. No one's ready to give A&M any credit yet.
Who's it? What's A&M's last toughest game that they've played after the Notre Dame game?
I'm trying. Give me a second.
State, Auburn,
maybe.
This Florida. Is why I don't. Blake,
this is probably Florida. If we're going to say it, it's probably Florida after Notre Dame.
Miami beat Florida by a similar score.
No, it wasn't a similar score. If you watch the game, you would know. If you watch the game, A&M completely.
I did. Watch the games.
I'm not saying you. I didn't say you didn't. I didn't mean it like that.
Okay.
A&M completely dominated them.
So did Miami.
No, they didn't. Joe, it was a 7-point game with 5 minutes left. There wasn't domination. Stop with that.
Why?
Stop.
I don't remember it being that close with 5 minutes left.
I will rate right here. It was a 7-point game with 5 minutes left. They went for it multiple times on 4th down, which gave them short fields.
There was also a long touchdown that was called back because of a completely ridiculous reason.
Good, but at the same time, I can watch A&M versus that team and watch them completely dominate them. Viv completely started a whole holy war here before we even talked about BYU and Utah.
Holy shit, man. All right, but I'm not going to sit here and you're not going to sit here and watch
I'm telling you, it's 5 minutes. It's a 7-point game with 5 minutes left.
Scoring plays.
Go to the very bottom because it will tell you.
It was 19-7 in the 4th quarter.
No. Before it got there, when it's 14-7, is there 5 minutes left to go on the clock? Yes or no?
Florida scored. Okay, it was 13-0 at halftime. Florida scored with 3 minutes to go, and then Miami scored with 4 minutes to go. But
there you go.
There was a long Marty Brown touchdown that was called back.
Marcel Reed's 17-yard run got called back for a holding. I can do this all day.
I think that we can also both agree that Week 3 Florida was a lot chippier than the version of Florida at the current moment when we're hearing rumors that Billy Napier is going to get fired.
And going into Notre Dame is tougher than playing them at home in Week 1 with a brand new quarterback that doesn't have a start.
Are you like, am I reading this correctly? Are you trying to argue that you think A&M is on par with Miami, or are you just trying to argue that they've got a tough
Here's
schedule?
my hot take on A&M at the current moment. If they keep finding some shit defensively, I don't know.
I mean, they're finding it.
Joe, I'm sorry, brother. I mean, you posted this week about Cassius Howe. They're finding shit defensively. So I don't want to overreact to A&M because they'll do what they always do in November and completely shit their pants. However,
okay. But here's my problem with that conversation, because as you're bringing up and leaning into resume to look at past context, their best defensive performances have come in matchups where they have faced off with teams that do not have very consistent offenses. So we're talking about feasting on Auburn, that's been a mess, Mississippi State, that was a little bit overrated, and also doing what they did to Florida when they were hanging on life support. So
as much as it's the overrated Arizona State win for Mississippi State if Texas Tech blows them out.
Yeah, but like Arizona State's not a top 25 team, so it doesn't really do much for me for the conversation. I don't think that it takes anything away from Texas Tech. If Texas Tech smokes, like completely, we're not doing. Wait, stop. We're not doing transitive property.
A word.
That's multiple layers. That's multiple layers of transitive property that we.
I didn't say a word. I literally
about to.
Say a word.
I know when you're about to say something.
You're like a woman. You're accusing me of saying something I didn't even say.
Don't call me a woman. Don't call me a woman. That's okay. Like, all I'm saying is that the best offense that they faced this year was Notre Dame, and they gave up 41 points. And as much as their defense has improved, and I'm excited by it, I have a lot of pause because we're not going to find out how legit that defense is until
they ironically play an LSU team, with all due respect, that can't find offense.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, I don't count that as an example. If
LSU's a one-loss team and they go into that place at night, I'm sorry. I'm just going to tell you.
Wait. No, it's going to be an important, good game. LSU's offense is ass, though. Like, I'm just being as candid.
So
as
is Florida's.
Yeah, but that's my whole point. Is that they're literally. I'm looking at their schedule right now. The hardest offensive matchup that they have, if we take away Notre Dame, is Arkansas or Missouri. Missouri probably would be up there. Texas's offense has been a mess. No one can block for Lenore Sellers at the current moment, and we're not including Samford into the conversation. So all I'm saying is that their defense might look better, but like, how real is that?
I will say this. Outside of the Oregon thing, which is a big deal, okay? But I think Notre Dame's kind of in the same breath as if Oregon continues to do what they're doing. I do put a lot of weight on – we called it a signature win for Mike Elko going into South Bend, Indiana, and winning.
Yeah, and I give them all credit for it, but their defense got cooked by the second start for a redshirt freshman. The version of CJ Carr right now goes and plays that secondary. What is the score?
But
he's gotten better since that game. I'm just saying.
But their defense has gotten better. CJ Carr can get better, and so can their defense.
All I'm saying is that you played a top 10 quarterback and you gave up 40 points.
And you gave up 41. I mean,
you
can't come out here and say, well, Miami found a way to win multiple games, and then when A&M does it, it's just, it doesn't matter. All right, we got to move on.
We got to move on to the next preview.
You want to hit them at the end?
Let's get to the super chats really quick, and then we'll do the preview.
Elks with a $5 super chat says, Joe Wynn has Ohio State let anyone back into the game like Miami. What is the best unit in the country, Joe? It's Ohio State's defense.
Okay, I think that we need the context of Miami playing against Florida State on the road one of their biggest rivals. Okay. And also Ohio State, we can't really classify it as letting a team back into the game against Texas, but Texas was still in a position to keep that, like to possibly win that game at the end. It was that close. So we can't act like Ohio State has dominated and blown past every single team that they've played. There was one instance where Miami did that, and it was on the road against one of their most hated rivals. I don't think that's invalid to talk about.
Elk says if Washington had SEC on their chest, they'd be top 15. Here's an interesting fact for all the people in the Big Ten. You have more AP voters than the SEC.
Do they actually?
Yes. Go look it up.
By the way, I hate to report this.
Oh, shit. What?
No. Oh, no, this isn't like an extra. Oh, Washington is going to lose this week. So the argument. Because they.
Oh,
so
dude, you finally got me on the bit like I got.
No, that wasn't on purpose.
I thought Billy Napier done gotten the gotten the pink slip.
On a Wednesday would be wild.
Who does play this week?
They go to Michigan, but it's a noon kick. So I don't. I'm actually, it's one of my bets.
Just lost.
It's one of my best bets of the week. I think that Washington's in for one this week. So the argument for them being ranked is kind of got to get put on hold.
Marshall with a $5 super chat says, fun fact, if A&M beats LSU next weekend, they would be 8-0 for the first time since 1975. They also haven't won in Death Valley since 1994. And I'm going to be honest with you. I have no logic for this. You're not winning next week.
I was going to say I'm going to pick A&M, but now that because I don't want LSU to win.
You're not beating LSU at night, not them.
I need A&M to win, so I might pick LSU.
If you do that, I swear to God, I'm going to hurt you. Actually, I'm saying that too just to piss off Marshall. All right, let's move on here. Joe, the Holy War this week, BYU versus Utah. Big game in the Big 12 here. Utah kind of getting their legs back up under them after the Texas Tech game. BYU continues to find ways to win. When you look at the Holy War this week, how you see it going down?
Blake, as I was saying in the preview or at the beginning of the show in the introduction, I think that this BYU team is unjustifiably ranked as high as they are. I think that LJ Martin is a fantastic running back. I love watching that kid run. He runs super hard. I'm excited to kind of get my eyes on him as a draft prospect because he's just such a pounder, 652 yards on the ground so far this year. But the way that they hung around with Arizona and they needed overtime to beat them, as well as the rest of their schedule, not really beating anyone super confidently and defiantly, it makes me feel very off. I think that the Utah performance against Texas Tech has legitimately altered our perspective on who they are. They have bounced back big time since that game. They are favored by 3.5 points, and I think the books know that they are the better team in this matchup. The biggest thing for me, Blake, is that this Utah defensive line is insanely good. Their front seven is insanely good. John Henry Daly, 8 sacks on the year, quietly one of the most productive defensive ends in college football. Lander Barton's one of the most gifted linebackers in college football, who they even have used at tight end this season. I think that this Utah squad is regaining their footing, and I say this all the time in college football. Teams are allowed to get better. A bad game against Texas Tech, I do not think reflects on who they are and is more of just of a depiction of how good Texas Tech is, not that Utah is a weak team in this circumstance.
So when I look at Utah, look, you look at them and say, oh, well, who are they? Because that, like you mentioned after the Texas Tech thing, I don't know who this BYU team truly is. Because we talked about this earlier. They're trailing to Arizona. They're trailing to Colorado. They got to come back in multiple spots, and they do. And you can't take it away from them that they found ways to win. The issue that I have right now going into this game, even though it's a rivalry game and anything can happen in rivalry games, when I look at this, can you do that against Utah? And I don't know if you can. So if you're going to win this game, you better play out with a lead. The interest – somebody on the Discord just hit us up. It's Marshall probably talking about A&M and LSU. Who knows? But when I do look at Utah, Joe, and I look at what they do. They're the number one team in the country on third down offensively. They don't get off the field. Now, the Texas Tech game, they were unable to stay on the field, and that's where most of their third down inefficiencies came. You got to make Dampier one-dimensional, Joe. You got to make him sit in the pocket and throw the football. And if you can do that, you have a chance. I thought that's relatively what Texas Tech did the best, is limiting him, and when he did break contain, not allowing him to get past the line of scrimmage and throw the football. I don't know if BYU's got enough to be able to contain him, not constantly. So when I look at this entire situation in this entire game, I don't know if there's anything that BYU does or can do outside of schematically that would be able to slow him down for 4 straight quarters. He's going to have to continue to make mistakes. In reference to that, Dampier has made mistakes. Now, Utah fans will come in here and say, no, he hasn't. Brother, yes, he has. Look at the interceptions. Look at the decision-making and the throws that he's made. Just because he's not getting picked off doesn't mean he's not making bad decisions. I look at this game and say I think they're going to lean on BYU, and they're going to lean on for all 4 quarters, and BYU is going to break, and this one's going to go for Utah.
I'm a lot higher on Devon Dampier than you are, and he has been –
I just don't like the bad decision-making and the interceptions.
Okay.
I don't like it.
I think that when he is more activated as a runner, he is a more free-playing quarterback, and he's a much better playmaker. He's got 378 yards rushing, leading the team right now, and Wayshawn Parker has 6.4 yards per carry, which is super impressive. I like Dampier, and I think that if we're looking at the quarterback matchup, I have to take Dampier over Bachmeier, who's
I agree with that. I agree with that.
And I watched it back the Arizona game, man. Bachmeier, he's got a lot of guts. He's a tough kid. He did some great things as a runner, but it's a little too soon. It's a little too soon to invest in a freshman. He's got a lot of work he's got to do, and some of his mistakes that he made as a passer nearly cost them the game. That was the real pivot point against Arizona. Going up against a Kyle Whittingham defense, having turnovers is going to completely do you in. It is going to completely cook you. I'm fearful if Bachmeier takes a couple of early sacks, and if we end up seeing a pick or two from him, or just one, a short field for Dampier is enough to set them up and then to control the momentum of the game. So that's the biggest reason why, Blake, I'm really in on Utah. And I know this on the road, it's going to be really tough to win in that environment. We talk about how both these home environments are really, really amazing and underrated in college football. Utah, to me, I think is going to be able to get the job done.
BYU is going to have to stay ahead of the sticks. Joe, they're 11th in the country in rushing and having 238 yards per game. The problem is, to your point, Joe, they can't throw the ball. They can't. I wish we would have aired our off-air conversation about this, but I'm going to leave that alone. Okay. Defensively, they haven't been bad. They're just going to have to stay ahead of the sticks and keep Utah's offense off the field. I mean, it's duality of styles in the sense of you got to out Utah and the history of Utah by being Utah in a lot of ways. Joe, I got to be real with you. I watch this BYU team, and I know that they're at home, and in a rivalry game, anything can happen. And this team is undefeated, and we shouldn't say, oh, man, they're not good, they're going to lose. We shouldn't do that. But, man, I can't do it. I think Utah's going to roll. Give me for them to win. Give me the points. And I just think that they're going to lean on them so much, and ultimately BYU is going to get down, and they're going to have to throw the football late in the game to get back into this, and they're not going to be able to.
By the way, it's a random note. No, well, all I was going to say is that I didn't realize Bear. I was trying to confirm that he was a true freshman. I didn't realize Bear had this stupid BYU website. Oh, this website stinks. Wait 1 second. His brothers' names are Tiger and Buck. And he's also got Hank, and Hank Bachmeier was the quarterback at Boise State and then at Wake Forest. But I like the bit that we got going on here with Bear, Tiger, and Buck. What I was going to say, though, about Bear.
You think they go hunting?
Well, they're from Murrieta, California, so I don't know if it's a big hunting area or not. Here's my thing, though. When was the last time that we can think of a team with a true freshman true freshman quarterback, that team was a top 15 caliber team, because that's the area that
Trevor Lawrence,
and he was special. Like,
well,
he was real special.
If you remember now, the first couple of starts and the first couple of run, I mean, he didn't start the season; he ended it. I mean, it wasn't great for Trevor Lawrence and the boys.
That's the point, though, is that being a true freshman has its
that's what I'm trying to. Right, that's what I'm trying to.
He's shown them.
Look, I'm not trying to. I just don't trust what I've seen from BYU. I think when you play with enough fire, you're gonna get burned. You haven't gotten burned yet. You play with fire this week, you're getting burned, brother. I'm just gonna let you know right now. All right. Before we get to our picks here, TJ with a $50 super chat. This isn't gonna liven up the chat at all, but a massive super chat here. He says, "I believe in Ohio State, Miami, and Indiana that they are legit, but the SEC is just different. When teams, aren't good, you still have to account for their schedule and the environment. I don't think the Big Ten or ACC have to worry about as playing in many as tough places as they play."
You know what? That's actually a pretty good argument. That is the no, seriously. Wait, no. Seriously, that is one of the first times I've seen somebody use that argument, because when I argue with you and I argue with other people and I see people argue on Twitter, all people say is, well, my conference has this many ranked teams and this conference has that many ranked teams. That is the one fair thing I will concede, is that the SEC has bigger stadiums. They're constantly filling those stadiums. You could travel to Arkansas and it's still going to be a crazy environment. You could travel to Mississippi State and those cowbells are going to be rocking. The same thing can't be said about Northwestern. It can't be said about UCLA. It can't be said about Maryland. It can't be said about USC at times.
Rutgers.
Fill their stadium. Hey, don't talk down about Rutgers.
Is this true though?
Yeah, it is true.
Okay.
That's the only point that I would concede.
I don't know if the SEC has a legit top team. Do I think that they have a lot of really good teams? Yes. Do they have a top elite national championship team yet? I don't know that. I don't know that. So do I think that some of them have had, do I think Alabama's, well, by the way, Alabama's going to have the number one strength of schedule after this week, after they play Tennessee. No one can say that they've played a tough.
But the problem is, and I'm going to keep bringing this back, is
I'm just bringing up the point. I mean, it is true. Is it not true?
It's true, but it's layered. The problem is we take strength of schedule as just like a simple answer to describe if a team has had a tough schedule or not. It's layered. Like, how good are the teams that are ranked that they've actually played? Because I don't think Vanderbilt's very good. I don't think that they should be ranked. I don't.
Okay, but they are.
Just because they are doesn't mean that they're a good team. They're not one of the 25 best teams in college football.
All right, well then let's throw away the Oregon win going into Happy Valley. You got to throw it away.
But I've never said that was like a defining reason why Oregon.
You got to throw it away. They suck.
They're still a good roster, but I don't disagree with that logic. Yeah, they're shit.
Yeah, because the Shoe, Happy Valley, Alton, Husky Stadium, Nebraska are all bad. Nobody going to Mississippi State or Kentucky.
Dude, that's not what we're saying. You can't compare Mississippi State and Kentucky to the teams that you just listed. Obviously, all of those teams. Notice how we didn't put the Big House. All of those teams. I just realized that. Nice, good one, Alex. All of those teams obviously have elite environments in college football. But the point that I was making is that the bottom teams in the SEC still pack the stadium. They still pack the stadium.
Until you've been in that stadium and you hear those cowbells, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
All right. Here's our picks. Presented by FanDuel. Joe and I are still tied. But the problem here is we have not been good on picking these top games this season. But here we go. Georgia versus Ole Miss. 7.5-point spread for the Georgia Bulldogs. I'm going with Ole Miss to cover, Georgia to win. You're going for Georgia to win and to cover.
Yeah, I'm fighting to take a lead here. I think that Georgia going to run the rock all over this Ole Miss team. And I also think, we didn't talk about this in the preview, this is one of those games where Georgia and Kirby they use it as a momentum builder. They realize they got to lock in. It's a home game against a defeatable opponent, and they do it with a little bit of extra juice. So give me them winning by 8 or more points.
Georgia's found a way against really bad opponents to not show up in the first half.
That's fair.
So show me that you can show up in the first half, and we'll have a conversation there. But I'm still going to pick them to win, just not to cover. The that half point, Joe, I'm not doing it. We keep losing games that way. Texas Tech minus 8.5 at Arizona or versus Arizona State. Both of us going with Texas Tech. By the way, Sam Levitt going to be playing this game per Matt Zenitz of 247 Sports.
So that's interesting to know that Levitt's going to be playing. I'd be curious to see how much the line moves any further from this point. But I stand by my statement that Texas Tech is playing on an unreal level, that they're a team that is dominating its way through its schedule. I do not think that Arizona State's offensive line nor their secondary has played very well up until this point. So give me the Red Raiders to cover that spread.
I completely agree with what you just said. And I also completely agree that they're going to dominate and roll here. Give me the Red Raiders as well. Notre Dame, 9.5-point favorite over USC. I'm assuming both of us are going Notre Dame to win. You're not going Notre Dame to win?
No, I'm going Notre Dame to
We're both
no comment. No comment.
We're both going to go Notre Dame to win here. The 9.5 points is too big for me. I think they win.
Yeah.
I don't like the 9.5 there. For what it's worth, I'm not betting any of these games this week. I'm just giving you picks. I'm staying away. I would not bet any of them.
I've bet on most of these. This one I did not.
I'm not betting on this one. I think USC is going to keep it close. I think Notre Dame gets their swagger back this week.
I hope so. I don't have any analysis. I hope so, Blake, because I can't mentally handle my team being out of it.
I got to be real with you. Don't yell at me. I'm going to say the same for LSU in just a moment. If you lose, I wonder where this thing goes. I really do wonder where
the same thing does not apply for Notre Dame. That does not apply for Notre Dame because the mental state of Notre Dame at the current moment, even if they lose, is still an understanding of what next year brings because the young core coming back. Everybody's riding high on CJ Carr right now. So if they lose and CJ Carr plays well, everyone's fine. Seriously, nobody has anything to worry about, and they'll figure out what they're going to do on defense. Everybody's aware that
the coach goes to Florida.
Marcus Freeman's not going to Florida. He's not going to Penn State. All that's a bunch of bullshit. I'm not supporting.
Bama minus 7.5 versus Tennessee. Both of us going with the Tide, and yes, he is.
Dude, I wonder if FanDuel has odds for next.
He leads it. He leads it.
That makes me really upset. I wish I could place a bet for him not to leave. Yeah, you're just trying to piss me off.
I'm just trying to piss you off.
Tennessee's defense is bad, and they're having a lot of trouble stopping explosive passing attacks. Ty Simpson and the boys, even with a banged-up Ryan Williams, are going to air out at home against this Tennessee team. So give me the Tide. I bet on this game. I got money on this one.
I would bet this one. I think Tennessee's about to get rolled. Pun intended here. I really do. Vanderbilt minus 2.5 versus LSU. I'm going with the Tigers. You're going with Vandy. Thank you, God. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. See how nice I am? I'm not doing this because I think Vanderbilt's going to win. I'm not doing it.
Listen to me. They can. LSU can't get over 20 points scoring against P4 opponents. They sure as shit can.
LSU loses if they shit their pants. If they play like like a game that they played against Ole Miss, they absolutely lose.
If they play like they did versus South Carolina, I think they dominate them, though.
I agree with that. That was what I was going to say. Because they won, even though their offense turned the ball over as many times as it did.
Dude, I'm about to say this in literally 30 minutes. Get this. LSU has missed on 117 points this year. It leads the FBS. It pisses me off. It pisses me off so bad. God, it pisses me off. All right. Joe and I will see you on Sunday.
Wait. Marshall sent us a super chat. Yep.
Marshall says, here's my argument for why the Big Ten is better than the SEC. Are you ready? Never mind. I'll get back to
Okay,
you.
I didn't read that. Thanks, Marshall.
Yeah, Marshall's our friends again. See how quickly that is. All right. We'll see y'all again on Sunday. Y'all have a great night. Peace.